What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more acid-dub-techno. And indeed, we're returning for the second Acid in Dub volume on the 303 Alliance label, which is the 15th 303 Alliance release overall, but the second specific Acid in Dub. I want to give a big shout out to Benji 303, who not only has been running this label for years now, not only makes a very driving and wicked style of acid techno more generally, but I would say following Jah Scoop, the one and only guy, the geezer McAffer, I would say Benji is probably the second most prolific and badass acid dub producer, so big shout out to Benji. And we are going to listen to another tune by the one and only Jah Scoop, and we're going to listen to Bubble I Chalice. Now, this record came out in 2025. I'm trying to remember when the first Acid and Dub volume came out. I think it was a few years ago, maybe even several years ago. So we've been waiting for this one for a while, but it has finally landed. And yes, Bubble I Chalice, for those who don't know Rasta and or ganja culture, chalice is a type of water pipe. It is a bubbler, essentially, though I think a very specific type of one. It's used in Rasta, like ceremonial smoking. It's, I think, like groundations might be the term, but yes, it's actually a slang word for marijuana itself, but technically, or most specifically or narrowly, refers to a water bubbling type of pipe that it is smoked out of. I think even the phrase like lick the chalice is a metaphor for getting close to Jah, so I think it's a term that you see throughout Rasta culture, but again, most fundamentally it refers to a bubbling water pipe. So Bubble I Chalice sounds like we are indeed talking about the ritual of smoking ganja in the context of Rastafari, so let's give this a listen. This is, as I said, the master of the acid dub form, Jah Scoop, aka Guy McAffer, aka The Geezer, as well as a handful of other names over the years. And this is his tune, Bubble I Chalice, from Acid in Dub Volume 2, which is 303 Alliance Volume 15, or catalog number 15. bass line in both senses of the word, layer of acid. Heavy in texture. It's brilliant. It's just brilliant. Yeah, I know, like, Luca, you're like a glacier. She'll, like, slowly, imperceptibly slide off of my lap, and every once in a while she catches herself and has to sort of readjust. But yes, I think it's a great tune. I wonder what the samples in this one come from. It's a song with a very positive message speaking about the healing qualities of music, the spiritual empowerment that comes through listening to reggae music, and the Rasta ceremony of smoking, burning away the evil, and so on, the good vibrations that are happening. So yes, it feels in some ways like a love letter to the culture, beliefs, and social aspect of being part of the Rasta movement, of engaging in the ceremonial and positive smoking of cannabis. So yeah, it feels like it's very much at home in the larger culture that it is referencing. And ultimately, I do again wonder where the original sample comes from. I do, as I have said in many a video, not only do I think Guy makes just some of the best acid work around, even, not in his acid dub Jah Scoop guys, but in the Geezer and other monikers that he's used, most notably the Geezer. I believe the majority of his output over the years is under that name, and some of my very favorite tracks come from the Geezer, but also Jah Scoop. I mentioned it before. He made Jah Scoop stuff going back to, I think, the very late 90s, certainly the early 2000s. A lot of it was on, like, Highwire. And then he brought the Jah Scoop name and style back starting in the, I think, early 2010s. And it's that period up until now where I think the Jah Scoop stuff, it's just untouchable. It's like the best acid techno around. And as someone who loves reggae and ska music, and to a slightly lesser extent dub, meaning I enjoy dub, but I think I like, roots and raga and even dancehall a bit more than dub. But even saying that, I like all different kinds of reggae and ska music, and so it's a mixture of two of my very favorite things, acid techno and reggae music in an umbrella sense. And yes, he has such good layered acid work. There's that deep foundational baseline acid, which really has this heaviness and this grit to it, and then there's these screaming, streaking, and more spiraling lines like higher up in the track that whiz out over the deeper foundational acid bass line. And then he's a master at incorporating these reggae keys and the the horns, as we hear in a lot of the tunes. And this one, I love that double note or chord dissonant synth, which was notable for a middle section, and then in the outro it featured very prominently too. I definitely enjoy that. And again, the way that the acid bass line and that wicked dissonant synth with a bit of still of the reggae chords or keyboards, the way that stretches out over the outro means that you could do a long double drop out of this tune into another one, and you'd still have a sprinkling of the flavor of Bubble I Chalice, even as you're moving into the more proper part of your incoming tune. So yeah, top track. I feel like that's a long one. I want to say like 8 minutes or more, so definitely gives you not only a lot of good sonics across the duration of the tune, but longer tunes for us DJs, more mixing in possibilities, more mixing out possibilities, more opportunities to tease this track when you're still technically playing another record. So yeah, lots going on in the track. Once again, big shout out to Benji. I will say there is a Benji, and I think someone else, but I'm assuming Benji's sort of the lead on the remix. There's a Benji remix on this record of one of the Jah Scoop tracks, and it's absolutely killer. So I think next time I come back to this record, I will do a reaction to the Benji 303 mix. I'm gonna check really quick. Are you gonna get up, Luca? What's the plan? She is getting up. Because I want to see, I think I have the Discogs page open. So it's Goose. I'm not sure who Goose is. It's admittedly not a name I've seen. And indeed, on Discogs, it shows a couple other releases. One of the Stay Forever Super Limiteds, number 22, which came out a few years ago, as well as a Yolk release. Yolk being sort of like, I don't know what you call it. It's like a kind of like techno meets house, but a bit of funky like techno. It's a sub-label of Stay Up Forever. I think it's one of Chris's labels. I admittedly don't think I have a single Yolk record, which isn't a knock. It's just not quite my thing. But yeah, I think Goose shows up there too. Oh, and it's another track with Benji. Well, there you go. Nevertheless, as I said, that remix of the Shishamina tune, which is again a Jah Scoop. He does the original. That one is very good, so we'll come back for that one next time. Do let me know what you think of this, and I will see you next time. Peace.